سلام نه خبر جاتیه برای زفته آزاد
Yeah, I'm just trying to make that argument out. Yeah, that's
no, it's because of my eyes.
That's about 6
we made that
years
one.
ago. They say you're going to have a presentation today.
Really? I didn't know.
What, the workshop? Yeah, what is the workshop? Punish ones over here, punish 10,000 by presenting.
Yeah, that's a good punishment.
That's lunchtime already.
Well, like having. It's true. You know, according to Australia time, it's lunchtime already.
Australia time is lunch, you're right. That's right.
It's even late.
Lunch, even late lunch.
You know, they're jet lagged, so how many people are there?
35 are absent. So we're 30 microphone. I'll need to read from this to introduce Debbie, but before I introduce Debbie, you know that it's a professional development event today, which is in heart of our teaching practice in the Zanjan school. And we know that without constant improvement, we will not be able to cope with the students' demands and the learning demands of the students. And of course, for me personally, this is a great opportunity because I'll be able to sit there as a student and feel that I'm alive, because that's really what makes me feel alive. In 15 years of operating Zanjan as a pioneering language school, we've had several events on professional development, and some of you have attended some of them. This one we're lucky, we have a native English language teacher who's really one of the best as far as I know, in terms of knowledge, practice, friendliness and experience. Deborah Reid, or Debbie Reid, was born in Melbourne, Australia. She has a Bachelor of Arts, a Master's in Education and a postgraduate diploma in TESOL. She has worked at the Monash University English Language Centre in Melbourne for the past 12 years. Prior to that, she taught English to new migrants for several years. Deborah has personal experience in understanding the challenges in language acquisition and the best methods of learning a new language, as she enjoys learning foreign languages herself. She speaks Italian fluently and has taught Italian in schools in Melbourne for 14 years. She also has an intermediate knowledge of French and Indonesian and a basic level of Chinese, and now I can have Farsi. She's given numerous presentations at international conferences, both in Australia and abroad, in Singapore and Shanghai, and now in Iran, including many presentations at the Modern Language Teachers Conference. Now, please join me in welcoming lovely Debbie.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Salam and welcome to the two-day English language workshop. My husband and I have been travelling in Iran for nearly 3 weeks, and we've seen many wonderful things and done some amazing things. However, the best thing in Iran has been meeting the Iranian people, who we've found so friendly, so kind, and so hospitable. And we've travelled a lot, and I'm thankful. I can say that the Iranian people are among the nicest people in the world we've met. My husband and I have a sweet tooth, so we'll have great fun sampling the Iranian sweets. Can you hear me? as I mentioned, my husband and I have a very sweet tooth, and we've been finding great pleasure in sampling the Iranian sweets. So in Isfahan we enjoyed Gaz, in Shiraz Muscati, the Hotab in Yaz, and now in Zanjan we've been enjoying the naan Punjabi. Berenji, sorry, not the naan. To the extent that my husband last night suggested that I change the topic of my presentation to the sweets of Iran. However, I think I'll stick to the topic I know best. Thank you. So we'll just get started. So we have 6 presentations, 3 today and 3 tomorrow. And today we're beginning with one, making language teaching more exciting. So let's get started. Okay. So there are many methods of teaching, as you can see on board. So this is difficult for me because wearing the headscarf, so you'll have to bear with me if you keep scrolling on. Please remind me. Communicative language teaching and task-based learning, I'm sure they have been around for about 20 years, and I'm sure you're all using these. Can you hear me? Yeah. Do I have to stand here? These have been around for about 20 years, and I'm sure you're all using these methods in your classroom, in your daily teaching. At Monash, we still use communicative language teaching and task-based learning because they are fantastic teaching methods. Newer methods are blended learning, and we'll talk about that later, and the flipped classroom, which is perhaps the newest method. And we'll get you to participate in many different interactive tasks, warmers, icebreakers, information gap tasks, surveys, role plays, and lots of interesting activities. So, let's get started with an icebreaker. Thank you. Yeah. Good to have you all day. Anyway, so I have an icebreaker here, and we are all going to. Can I help you? Yes, that would be great. If you could please pass these out. Thank you.
technology. Which one are you? Bodybuilding. Yes. Bodybuilding else. Has anyone been to Australia?
What is
Of course, all the time, yeah. So you do. That's very much. And I do so. Have you visited?
Yeah.
No, unfortunately, I haven't. No.
First thing there's modern technique, other English. Have you visited Jordan? Yes. Well, let's ask a few questions. No. Have you been to UK? No. Do you speak more natural languages? Let's speak Turkish actually. I think when you study language there, like I remember that before he was regular, your uncle was why did I forget? Yes. That line is what is English?
It is difficult.
Not really. I think once a month. Yeah. Maybe. Once a month.
So, have you visited a city in the desert?
No, but I think Jersey has. You can ask Jersey. Jersey. Okay.
How many sisters do you have?
I only have one sister.
People with more than 2 sisters. You? Seriously? What's your name? Charlotte.
Have you ever been to UK before? Have you ever been to UK Thank you. Tony, do you exercise every day?
Yeah, no, it's not.
I have met someone famous. You can write it there, by the way.
Yeah, well, who is
I have met Mehran Modiri in person. Let's go into parties and what's we do? This party. Justice. Thanks. English songs. Hey guys. Hey. Okay, so could you please tell me whether you I think that you go swimming regularly. Really? Question. Do you go swimming regularly? No, I don't go swimming regularly. It's very bad. It's a very healthy sport. Have you visited more than 2 countries? Yes, many more. Which countries are they? All of Asia. Could you please explain that? I haven't heard it. Asia. Oh, Asia. All of Asia. And half of Europe. And now Iran. Great. Thanks. So let me see this book. All Asia.
By asking various people what they learned from this. And so I'm going to ask Serena, can you please tell me who you found goes to the gym and a bit more information? Where is Serena?
Marcus and Marisa goes to the gym.
Great, thank you. Extracted from the person. Thank you. And Yolanda, please tell me, thank you. Who did you find loves going to parties?
Actually, most of us. But I was talking with, let me just check, Sherzi, that she said she loves really go to the parties, especially parties with her friends, and she loves dancing, eating food and making voices with the others, and most of the time they prepare some parties with each other to enjoy.
Oh, that's great. So you can see Yolanda got lots of extra information from that person. So that's great. So the whole idea is to get people talking and to extend the conversation in a real situation. So you're finding out real information from real people rather than just learning something from a textbook. Good. So, let's move on. So, community language teaching, as I'm sure you're all aware of, I'm just going to briefly go over the benefits of it. So, successful language learning, we communicate real meaning. As in this exercise, you were asking real questions and you got real answers, so people are engaged. So that's the whole thrust of communicative language teaching. Okay. Task-based learning, like we're doing tasks, active. Students are actively learning English rather than just learning from a textbook, which is passive. Or listening to a teacher, which is also passive, and students can tend to go to sleep sometimes. And tasks should have a purpose. As in this last activity, there was a purpose to find information from people. So, less teacher talk and more student talk. So task-based learning is part of communicative language teaching, and where students perform meaningful tasks, trying to find out information. So here are some examples. As you can see, I'm not going to read them all, you can have a quick look. Yes. Students can learn the vocabulary, learn the language structures, and then they're engaged in a real conversation. And this is something everybody does, goes to the doctor. So it's useful information for the student and the learner. So we're using real life situations. We're personalising the tasks to the student's own experience. As I mentioned before, everyone's gone to the doctor. So it's a real situation where you would need to use those language structures and that vocabulary. And this also encourages students to learn more vocabulary. If they're in a role-play situation and they can't remember how to express their particular illness or their symptoms, and then they can go and learn those symptoms and those language structures. And the teacher can be moving around the room, helping students with vocabulary, perhaps correcting their grammar. And this is much more productive than the old method of grammar translation or teacher up the front talking, and students are, falling asleep sometimes. So students are engaged, they want to participate, their confidence increases, and their fluency increases. So you only become fluent in a language by actually using the language. Because you could spend 6 years studying English, as I spent about 6 years studying French. And in the class, we didn't practice, ever. And at the end of the 6 years, I had a lot of knowledge, but I really couldn't speak very much. And that's the whole thrust these days of language teaching, is to use the language. So even in a beginner's class, if you get students using the language, they're feeling a little bit confident, they feel great, they've communicated something in the target language, and it's much more productive. So, blended learning. This is a much newer approach, probably been around 5 or more years. It's basically using the teaching methods blended with computer-related activities and online digital media. So we've got a whole presentation on this. The third presentation this afternoon will be on technology. So at Monash we are encouraged to use technology wherever possible. Use the internet and online programs, videos, songs, online quizzes, games, research with online dictionaries. So as much as possible, we're encouraged to use this. Because students love it. They love technology. Every student has a mobile. They love their computers, sometimes too much. And but anyway, we can use this technology that students love in order to help them to learn English. So, why use blended learning? It's more exciting for students. It's more personalised. Students can learn at their own pace. So in your classrooms, you would have students who are a little bit weak, students who are quite advanced, and you've got the ones in the middle. So the weaker students can use technology at home to reinforce grammar or whatever aspect they're weak in, and the more advanced students can progress. So students can learn at their own pace, which is very important. And you can, as I said, reinforce difficult concepts concept, flipped classroom. When I first heard it, I thought, oh, what is that? But it actually does mean flipped. And it actually, is the traditional method is where students learn content in class. And then homework, they practice those concepts or interpret teaching them. And students are often bored, as you can see in the picture. I'm sure you've had students falling asleep, especially in the evening classes. We teach at Monash and teach a lot of Chinese students. And if you ask them, oh, what's your favourite pastime? They will say, sleeping. And the Chinese students, Mark will reinforce this, they can sleep anywhere. If they're tired, they just put their head on the desk and they fall asleep, which of course we don't allow. So this tries to prevent that happening. And if I see students getting tired or bored, I immediately start an activity which engages them, makes them be active in class, and then they start to enjoy it more. So the flipped classroom is learning the content at home, for the grammar, vocabulary at home. Sometimes you do have to teach grammar in class. I'm not saying all of it is at home, but where possible, a lot of it can be learnt at home. And then the content is reinforced or practiced in class. For example, if you had a role play, students could learn the vocabulary. Say you had the doctor-patient role play. Students, if you would have a doctor-patient role play, for example, students could learn the vocabulary at home. They could learn symptoms, like if it's a cold, they could learn, I have a runny nose, I have a cough, I have a sore throat. Those language structures they could learn at home, and also a lot of the vocabulary related to that. And then in class, so they've done that work at home, and then in class they can practice. Where you have, where it's under the supervision of the teacher, and the teacher can, if students need more reinforcement, they can reinforce those language structures, or they can extend. If they find students already know the basics, they can extend language structures and more vocabulary. So this is I'd say the latest teaching methodology that we're trying to use in our classrooms at Monash. So students they're engaged in class, they're active, and they're enjoying it more. And that's the most important thing, that students feel that they're progressing and that they're enjoying it. Because I think a lot of your students come excuse me, after school, and so it's an extra thing, it's not compulsory. So you have to engage them, make them enjoy it, and enable them to feel that they're progressing and they're actually learning English, learning to speak English. Okay. So, as I've mentioned, the flipped classroom, a lot of the benefits. Here's a little girl at home, very bored. No, she's learning at home all her vocabulary, so she's doing that by herself. Students learning the basics at home at their own pace. So one student might be a very clever student and they may learn that vocabulary very quickly. That's great. Another student, maybe a bit weaker, may need to spend a lot more time learning the vocabulary or the language structures. And that's fine too. And then the students practice their new knowledge in class under the supervision of the teacher. So students are active, more engaged, their fluency and confidence increases. So here are just a list of some of the interactive tasks. I'm sure you do a lot of these tasks in class already, but here are just some that we use regularly. I'll just give you a minute to have a look at those. Some you may know, and some, like the jigsaw activities, we'll be doing actually one of these in the second presentation. So these will all be explained later if you're not sure. Okay, so interactive tasks. Well, the first one should be a warm-up at the beginning of the day. So it's great if you can relate it to the topic. If you can't, it doesn't matter. Just something to get students speaking and engaging and thinking in English. So just one simple one, tell your partner one positive and one negative experience you've had the day before or in the last week. For example, a negative experience could be they missed the bus. A positive experience could be they got an A+ in a test. So it's quick, and students can think of something, it's personal to them. So they're engaged immediately. So people like to talk about themselves, especially young people, teenagers, and so it's just a quick one that I often use. Another one is relate a time you felt comfortable or uncomfortable. Feeling uncomfortable is if you have to give a talk to the class. It's not negative, but you're feeling a bit nervous. A time when you feel comfortable is if you're having a cup of tea or coffee with your best friend. You feel relaxed, comfortable. So that's a good one too. Another one, think of one question, just one question, and ask 5 people, and then you can report what you find to the class or to the group. For example, it could be something simple. Who is your favourite female singer in Iran? Or favourite English-speaking singer? Or favourite movie star, something like that. So it's quick, gets people talking, and then they're feeling engaged. Another one is tell your partner. This could be a good IELTS one. Talk to your partner for 2 minutes about your weekend. So again, it's personalised. Students are talking about themselves, and so their mind is thinking, and they're engaged and they're interested. Your favourite food, your last holiday, your best friend, your favourite sport. Is this some echo here? Or another one, tell your partner 3 things. Could be any 3 things. For example, favourite movie star, favourite singer, favourite song. So you have to think of those. And that's why I know this. Is it okay? Yeah, that's alright. Another one, in groups, a continuing story. Like on the weekend, I went to the market and I bought a kilo of apples. And then the next person, I went to the market, I bought a kilo of apples and half a kilo of oranges, etc., etc. So in groups they can do this, and it just gets the mind going. Okay, so there's just a couple. Actually, at the end of the presentation, at the end of the workshop tomorrow, I'll be giving you a handout of all these activities. So if you haven't had time to write them all down, that's okay. Amia is going to give you that tomorrow. So some more interactive activities. So information gap activities. Information gap is where you are talking to someone and you do not know what they're going to say. So you have to find out, you're trying to find out information that you do not have. So each student asks questions to find out answers, and the objective is to find the missing information. So we now have another activity. So we have student A and student B. So and there are just some sample questions at the bottom. If you have higher level students, you don't need to have sample questions, but if they're lower level students, I've just included some questions here. So we have student A and student B. Sorry. If you could just like that student A, and then you can just hand those out student B. So if you just could come up here. So you give every second person, student A, and if you could just come up here. So sorry. If you could give so student B. So every second person, student B. Yeah, and Jill is student B. And now Shirley in rows. Yeah, like that. So if you have a smaller class, this is obviously quicker to hand out these students A and student B.
The first what is Have you studied? What is this?
What is the first person's name?
Ben is an accountant. What does Tina do? Business?
Businesswoman, I sogar.
Okay, let's choose it. His name is Ben. Jason. Yes, Jason's P-E-R-T-H. What does he do? So service. What type of business? No, I doesn't mean I'm good. I'm just like Jason. What Actually, tennis is my favorite sport, and I know I'm going to see how some can share our ideas with each other. And also, I like to occupation, as my friends. These are again the type of the movie that she likes. You do? It's related. Actually, no, I didn't think of that about his pastime.